Good morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. If you can hear me, give me a yes or a thumbs up in the chat box for me. Just want to do a sound check. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And today we're going to be talking about analyzing arguments. But first, I have a little bit of trivia for you. This is just for fun, just to get us woke up this morning. The first question is, what platform is most often used for video game live streaming? Is it A, Twitch, B, YouTube, C, Facebook Live, or D, Vimeo? What do you think? Oh, yes, you're right. It is B. I didn't even know what Twitch was, and I had to look it up. I thought it would be YouTube, but it is, I'm sorry, not B, A, Twitch. So I thought it was YouTube too. How many bones are in the adult human body? 186, 206, 226, or 246? How many bones in the human body? What do you think? It is C, 226. Very good. Um, what parent company owns both Instagram and WhatsApp? Is it Google, Apple, Facebook, which is now Meta, or Amazon? What do you think? It is actually C, Facebook or Meta owns Instagram and WhatsApp. They're just buying up everything. Let's see, which human organ can regenerate itself if a part of it is removed? Is it the heart, um, the brain, the liver, or the pancreas? Yeah, it's C, the liver. It is the only human, that is the only organ that can regenerate itself. Which country is known as the Emerald Isle? Scotland, Ireland, Wales, or Iceland? What do you think? Yes, it is Ireland. I so want to go to Ireland. That's on my bucket list. The Heimlich maneuver is used to help someone who is A, having a seizure, B, choking, C, fainting, or D, in cardiac arrest. What do you think? The Heimlich maneuver. Yeah, it is B, choking. I hope nobody tries to do the Heimlich on me if I'm having a seizure or a cardiac arrest. Let's see. Which female artist was born as Destiny Hope? Was it Lady Gaga, Taylor Swift, Dolly Parton, or Miley Cyrus? What do you think? I'm still drinking my coffee this morning. I'm still trying to wake up, so these little quizzes are good for me too. So, Destiny Hope is actually Miley Cyrus. That's what she was born as. Um, they used to call her Miley, but it was a funny way of saying Smiley. That's what her dad used to call her, was Smiley, but it sounded like Miley. And when she got older, she changed her name to Miley. Um, who won an Academy Award for Best Actor for his role in Joker, the 2019 version of Joker? Was it Heath Ledger, Joaquin Phoenix, Jack Nicholson, or Jared Leto? All of these have played the Joker in something or another, but which one was the 2019 Joker? Do you know? This one was actually B, Joaquin Phoenix. Pretty good movie. It kind of showed you how the Joker became the Joker, I guess. Um, a little bit dark, but it was a good movie, and Joaquin Phoenix is a good actor. But Heath Ledger is my favorite Joker. Let's see, who is the lead singer of U2? Sting, Bono, Bruce Springsteen, or Adam Levine? Do you have any idea? So it is actually Bono. He is, if you don't know who U2 is, they're an Irish rock band. They've been around for a long, long time. And it's Bono. Bono is Irish, short for Bono Vox. All right, so that's enough trivia for today. That's just to get our brains woke up. So let's talk about the components of an argument. So an argument is just simply stating what I think, why I think this, and how do I know this to be true or to be the case. The purpose of an argument is to make a claim or general assertion and then try to persuade readers to believe you. You use facts and details and evidence to back up your claim. So it's not like an argument like we're talking about that you have with your brother or your sister or your boyfriend or whatever. It's basically in writing, we're making claims and then backing up that claim with facts and details. So, for example, yesterday someone put a post on Facebook and said that the local town had all of the bridges washed out and no one could get in or out of town. That was his claim or his argument, so to speak. Well, immediately people from the community started questioning him. He said, well, there's only 2 bridges. Are they both washed out? Can you get in from other roads? You know, da 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 da. Well, the truth is there was other roads that didn't have bridges that you could get in out of town. So his argument or his claim was not valid. So he didn't have facts to back up his claim. Also, matters of taste, such as one food over another, are not a true argument. So, for example, if I said Coca-Cola is better than Pepsi, that's a fact. How do I know this to be the case? Well, I love Coca-Cola. My whole family loves Coca-Cola. All my friends love Coca-Cola, and tons of people in the world love Coca-Cola. Well, guess what? That's not a very valid argument, because if you went out and did a survey, you would find just as many, if not more people that say Pepsi is better than Coca-Cola. So we don't have actual facts and details to back up that claim. So it's not a very good argument. However, let's try a different one. If I said seat belts save lives, I know this to be true. Why? It has saved me from personal injury in a car accident. Also, the CDC states that seat belts reduce the risk of death by 45% and cuts the risk of serious injury by 50%. This would be a more valid argument. People may disagree with the need for seat belts, but if I use valid evidence to back it up, like a study that's been done by the CDC, this is a better argument. I can back up my claim. All right, I have a short video here about arguments that I want you to watch. And let me make sure the computer sound is on. All right, here we go.
Everyone, it is Miss Kepley here, and today we're going to look at arguments and claims and how to analyze and evaluate a text for these authors' arguments and claims. So let's get started. So we're going to learn how to question and critique an author and read from a skeptical position. We're going to be fancy language arts students today. But before we can get to that, we need to look at some vocabulary. I want you to do is to take note of the important vocabulary terms you need to know in order to understand how to identify an author's argument and their claim. All right, so let's look at our first word, which is argument. And you're like, oh, I know what an argument is. I had one of those today when my brother wouldn't let me in the bathroom to get ready for school. We're not talking about that kind of argument. For the purpose of arguments and claims, we are talking about when the author wants to convince you on their position. So they're either for or against a certain issue or subject. So let's say it was your birthday and you got, I don't know, $300 in birthday gifts, like $300 cash. And what you really want to do with your money is to buy like a brand name sweatshirt that costs $100. And your mom is like, absolutely not. You cannot spend that much money on a sweatshirt. I won't allow you to do it. And then you're like, but it's my money. I could do what I want to do with it. So what you might consider doing is writing a letter that convinces her that you should be able to spend your own money. So that would be an argument when you're trying to convince somebody of your position, or when the author wants to convince you on their position. So with the sweatshirt, you're for spending your own money, and that's what your letter would be about. Claim would be your main point. So if we go back to the sweatshirt example, the main point would be the money was given to you, so you should be able to do what you want with it. So this is a statement that the author believes is true. And it must be a statement that can be argued. So if you think you can do what you want with your money, your adult might have a different perspective and they can argue that. So claims always need to be argued, or could be argued. So arguments and claims are not just a subjective opinion. The opinion is also supported with evidence, facts, and data. So it's not just about what you want. You have to be able to back it up. But let's use some caution here, y'all. As a smart reader, you need to constantly evaluate the author's purpose and position. So you need to ask yourself, does the author include relevant information and evidence to support their claim? Did the author provide an opposing viewpoint? Is the author credible? Now, if you're looking at that kind of stuff and you're like, what is she talking about? Don't worry, I'm getting ready to define some of these vocabulary words to help you. So relevant evidence is what the author uses to support their claim. So these are facts, statistics, quotes, experts' opinions. So maybe you can, if we go back to the sweatshirt thing, you can find a quote from a financial advisor who says, kids need to learn how to manage their own money. And that would be an expert quote to back up your claim. And it would be relevant evidence because it's coming from an expert, a financial expert. A counterclaim, on the other hand, is the opposite viewpoint of the author's claim. So it's what the other side would say. It is mentioned, so you're like, why would I bring up what the other person would say, what the other side would say? It is mentioned so the author can disprove it with stronger evidence that supports their claim. So it might be something like spending that type of money on a sweatshirt is frivolous, especially if you're going to outgrow it. That would be an opposite viewpoint. So signal words, so if you're reading and you're trying to find the opposite viewpoint, here's some words that will help you. So the opposing view is that, or some people think that, some people may say that, others may believe, fill in the blank. So whatever comes after these signal words is typically a counterclaim. So that's the opposite of what the author believes. And then after the counterclaim, we come in with a rebuttal. So that's when the author responds directly to the counterclaim. The author provides reasons why the counterclaim is not as strong as their claim. So here are signal words to let you know that a rebuttal is coming. They'll say something like, however, in contrast, even so, although. So if we go back to the sweatshirt example, the rebuttal might be, even so, teenagers should be allowed to learn how to manage their money so when they are adults, they can make responsible decisions. Our final word that we need to look at is credible. We need to decide, is the author credible? Is the evidence that they're using credible? So what does that mean? It means that the author is able to be believed and trusted. So what we need to look for, we need to look at the author's credentials and their background, where the article was published. Is it cited and reliable evidence used to support the claim? So now that we have all of the vocabulary under our belts, let's look at how to analyze an author's arguments and claims. So this is if you're reading an article, what steps do we need to do to figure out the claims and to analyze it? So here's a broad overview. These are the components of argumentative writing. First, you have the claim, and it answers the question, what does the author think? Then you have the reasons why the author thinks this. And then finally, the evidence, and it's how the author supports their case. So step one is to identify the claim. So what you need to do is highlight the author's main point. And this is usually in the first paragraph. They'll tell you why they are writing this article or this paper. And then you need to ask yourself, is the claim clear? Is it reasonable? Does it make sense? But be careful. It is not a question of if you agree or disagree with the author. It's, can you pick out the claim? Can you pick out the author's main point? It doesn't matter if you agree or disagree with them. All right, step two, identify and analyze the evidence that the author uses. So what you're going to do is you're going to underline evidence that the author uses to support their claim. So again, this is facts, statistics, expert quotes that the author has included in their paper that makes their claim true. And then you need to ask yourself, is the evidence relevant? So does it match the claim? And is it credible? So does it have that backing that makes it strong? Or did they just find it off a blog post from 12 years ago? So after you do all that, you need to decide, did the author fully support their claim? Step three, identify and analyze the counterclaim. So remember, counterclaim is what's the opposite viewpoint. So when you see the opposite viewpoint, you're going to write an X next to it, because that's a little signal for us to know that's the opposing viewpoint. And ask yourself, does the author acknowledge and address what the other side might say about their position? And then circle reasons and evidence the author provides in response to show their viewpoint is superior. So you're going to circle the rebuttal. Step four, analyze the writing style. So pay attention to the techniques and elements that make the writing more convincing, persuasive, powerful. Now, not all arguments and claims articles have to be persuasive. Some are just factual. They're just giving you a side. Techniques that authors will use, they'll appeal to your emotions. They'll use like strong word choices, vivid language and imagery to create a mood. And then ask yourself, was the author persuasive, or was it just more of a factual article? So one final note, it is up to you as a good reader to think through the impacts of the arguments to determine if the author was successful or not. Look at their claim, look at the evidence, look at the rebuttal, and then decide, were they successful? Not do you agree with them, but were they successful in outlining their argument? That
Okay, So that was a little bit more about arguments and what arguments are and claims. So I hope that helps you a little bit. Um, why is this important to know? So when you take your GED test in particular, on the reading portion, you may have heard that there is an essay question. Well, the essay question has to do with this. They're going to give you two sides of an argument. So basically, they're going to make a claim. So they're going to give you two different passages to read. And then they're going to ask you which author had the better claim or argument and why. So it may be, for example, the U.S. should the U.S. Mint our money system get rid of the penny? And there'll be an article about, yes, they should get rid of it, and here is why. And then they'll give you a no, they should not get rid of it, and this is why. And it'll be like a big article, two different articles, and you're supposed to read both of them. And then you decide as the reader which author or writer gave you the best argument and why. Okay. So the best argument or claim is going to be backed up by facts. Okay. So you have to distinguish which one has more facts and is a more valid argument. So they don't want your opinion. It doesn't matter whether you agree with them or not. You could personally feel like they should not get rid of the penny, or don't get rid of the penny. It doesn't matter what you think or feel about the subject or whether you agree with it. You're just analyzing which author had the better argument and why. So that's why this is important. Do you have any questions so far? Okay. No questions? All right, so we're going to go ahead and go on, and we're going to talk about fact and opinion. So a fact is anything that can be proven or disproven. So you can prove or disprove it through observation or by reading and looking up facts. So if I said to you, the planet Earth is flat, this is a fact. Well, is this a fact? This is what we have to figure out. I have to give you valid arguments, valid claims, and I have to back it up with evidence. Well, in fact, through all of the science and evidence and observations that we have so far, that is not a fact. The earth is round. We can tell this by satellite pictures and images and things like that we have. We can prove that the earth is round. We cannot, however, prove that it's flat. There's lots of good claims out there. I say good. When I say good, I mean they're very convincing arguments, but they're not backed up with facts. So the earth is round as far as we can tell from all the facts and evidence so far, the scientific evidence that we have. An opinion, and by the way, there's a whole bunch of people, a whole group of people called flat earthers that do believe that the earth is flat, and they come up with all kinds of arguments and things to try to back up that claim, but none of those are backed up by actual facts. So an opinion is anything that cannot be proven or disproven. So for example, like I said, matters of taste can't be fact because they can't be proven or disproven. So if I said that tacos are better than spaghetti, I am stating an opinion. I'm letting you know what food I prefer. You cannot prove through observation, history, or scientific facts that tacos are better than spaghetti, even though I strongly feel that they are. I love both of those foods, but I will argue with you all day about tacos being better, but that is a matter of personal opinion. Now, if I said the Declaration of Independence was signed on July 4th, 1776, this is a fact. Well, you can prove that right or wrong, okay? So you can go and you can look it up in history books. social studies books, things like that, you can see that it was, in fact, signed on July 4th, 1776. Or you could prove that it wasn't. So that's what makes this a fact. If I said Ronald Reagan was the best US president, this is an opinion. You can't prove who is the best or the worst president. Why? Because everybody has their opinions. You could say the same thing about Donald Trump, and for every person that thinks he's the best president, you'll have someone that thinks he's the worst president. It's just a matter of taste or a matter of opinion. So again, if you can Google it and you can find facts to back up the claim or disprove it, it's a fact. If you can't prove it one way or the other, it's an opinion. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay. So we're going to switch gears a little bit and we're going to talk about steps in a process. So this is switching gears completely to something else. So steps in a process, this is a type of informational text, the how-to guide. We have discussed these before, so I'm just going to be brief. These include instructions for installing things. It could be a cookbook or something like that. Recipes are a very good example of processes. If you know anything about cooking, you know that a lot of recipes, if you don't follow them step by step, well, your recipe may not come out too good, especially when you're doing things like baking cakes and things like that. There's a certain process that you have to follow. Could be something less serious like making a paper airplane. Well, there's certain steps that you have to follow. If you don't, that airplane may not fly, right? Processes are linear. That means you have to do step 1, step 2, step 3. They're linear, or the project won't come out correctly. It could be a procedure. Procedures are also processes with steps. It may be the procedures of how a bill becomes a law. If you look at this chart, this tells you how a bill becomes a law. And if you look in there, there's several different steps that a bill has to go through. This is the process. Okay. So this is step 1, step 2, step 3. This is how it has to go. And then it can finally become a law. So this is a very lengthy process. So this may tell you something about how hard it is to get a law passed. Science also uses steps in a process. If you think of science experiments, well, if you don't follow steps in a process, you might have a disaster on your hand. I know whenever I was in school, in high school, in chemistry, if we were doing some type of science experiment, if we, especially working with chemicals and things like that, if you did not do things in a certain order, you were in trouble. Something happened that wasn't supposed to happen. Okay, so science always has a process. Scientists use processes. If you think about science experiments, scientists always start by asking questions. Then they make a hypothesis or educated guess. Then they test the hypothesis with some type of investigation, which usually includes an experiment. And then finally, they analyze the data from that experiment to draw a conclusion. So it has a process. Okay, everything has a process in science. All right, any questions about this today? That was short and sweet. Okay, so we're going to get out early today as far as this lesson goes. And you have some classwork that you can do today right now. So if you scroll down to September the 10th is today, class 6, you have a little assignment on analyzing arguments and claims. We've got some steps in a process, and then fact and opinion assignment. And then I have a little student survey that I'd like you to fill out for me, if you don't mind. That helps me as a teacher to do my best and teach better. So that's what we're going to do today. We do have extra time since the lesson wasn't that long. So if you get done with today's stuff, if you're behind on previous days, use this time to go back and work on those. All of the assignments you can do over. So if you felt like there was something that you just didn't score well on and you want to try it again, you can go back and do some of those over if you want to. So those are set up that way. So anyways, if you don't have any questions for me, we're going to go ahead and break right now. You can type your name in the chat box to sign out of class, and then you're free to go. And then we're going to meet back here at 11, and we're going to go over today's assignments together. So I will see you at 11. Thank you.